I don't read much in the way of history, but several years ago I took a blacksmithing course where I made an S-hook, a trammel, weenie roasting fork, several square nails. But what I really liked about it was that it came with this great 400 something page book called The Art of Blacksmithing by Alex W. Beeler. That'll be backwards for y'all, but that is the title of the book. What I really like about it isn't just the history of blacksmithing, but that the second half of the book goes in detail about how to set up your own shop. Tells you all the equipment and tools that you need, as well as several chapters on how to build or create your own items, your own tools, arms, armory, things you need around the house, utensils. I'd like to read a few passages from the book. Chapter 1, first paragraph, The Blacksmith. Fire and air, earth and water were once considered the four elemental substances of our world. Among the ancients, only the blacksmith worked with all four. His forge held the fire, and his bellows controlled the air to his purpose. His material, iron, the black metal, was part of the earth, and water was essential to cool his heated iron and give temper to his red-hot steel. The book then goes on to talk about some of the history behind the ancient blacksmiths and the myths and legends surrounding them from different cultures. And then gives this great passage. Let's have a visual here as I read from it. Imagine trying to live life without an available smithy before 1860, or even later in some communities not readily reached by rail or ship. It simply could not be done without reverting to the Stone Age. The traditional blacksmith's most important function until mass production replaced him as a tradesman was supplying the tools of civilization and war. In a large city or a small backward settlement, he would make, according to his own design or that of his patrons, the hammers, axes, bits, knives, sickles, scythes, auger bits, files, carving tools, spears, swords, arrowheads, and all other necessities of the various farmers and craftsmen found in a community. All craftsmen were basically dependent on the blacksmith's skill and availability. Think about your modern house, everything in it. Where would we be without the blacksmith? Now today, of course, we have mass industrialization, which has basically rendered the blacksmith obsolete. Rarely will you find a blacksmith, a professional blacksmith, where that is all that he does. He was no less essential to transportation. His skill and techniques were absolutely required to weld and fit wagon tires and hub rings, to shoe horses and oxen, and to make and fit all the metal accoutrements of wagons, carriages, and sleighs of a horse-drawn society. Possibly among the most skilled in the trade were the ship's blacksmiths and armorers who shaped iron precisely to the intricate needs of ships subjected to the continual motion and buffeting of the world's oceans, possibly for years before returning for repairs and refitting. Each warship and later whaling ship generally carried its own blacksmith or armorer, with a small forge and anvil and stock of iron and steel adequate to make at sea all necessary repairs on fittings and guns. Without the knowledge and skill of ironworking, the comfort of a man's home could barely have exceeded that of a Cro-Magnon man. I mean, just from nails alone. Not just that, but think about hinges, all the fasteners, latches for window fasteners. And what about cooking? Most cooking, especially in the past, was done over an open fire. And special utensils were required, most of them made of durable iron by the local blacksmith. Think of all the kettles and boilers we use. Iron bars, pot hooks, pokers, shovels, tongs to grab things, forks, spoons, ladles, and strainers. Think of all of these iron items that we use every single day. And not just that, but as we talked about with horses, horseshoes, the bridle bits, and harness buckles. All of these things which basically took us from the Stone Age to where we are today. Of course, there was a brief Bronze Age, preceded by an even briefer Copper Age. But again, where would we be without, as Chapter 2 calls it, the black metal? Practically all the craftsmen of the ancient and the modern world, until recently, were dependent on the blacksmith for their tools. The smith made their tools as well as his own, and was quite independent of all craftsmen but one, the iron maker. It's possible that the earliest blacksmiths smelted their own iron, but it's highly probable that iron making became a special occupation long before the dawn of history. One can only speculate how and when iron was first discovered. It is the most plentiful of the Earth's useful metals and the most ubiquitous. There are vast deposits of iron on every continent, and the supply so far has been inexhaustible. Unlike copper and lead, silver and gold, however, iron is a reluctant substance, a quality that makes it as valuable in use as it is difficult to acquire. Copper, for instance, can be found lying on the ground in its pure state, ready to be picked up and wrought by any hunter with no more equipment than a hot campfire and a couple of stones for hammer and anvil. So can lead and silver and gold. So can zinc and tin, which easily combine with copper to make bronze, the predecessor of iron for tools and weapons. Iron, though, is seldom found in a pure state. Occasionally a meteorite is found on the surface of the ground, but so rare is the occurrence that less than 1,000 meteorites have been found in the United States since the country was first colonized. The world's real supply of iron, the infinite potential wealth of knives and axes and spearheads, the miles of railway rails, and the fleets of ships, the mountains of skyscrapers, and the noxious hordes of automobiles, the Eiffel Tower and the Golden Gate Bridge, the batteries of cannons and the numberless armies of rifles. All were locked in the rocky vaults of the Earth's surface back when the world began. It goes on and on and on in this manner, which is just absolutely wonderful. A great history here as it goes into the difference between wrought iron and cast iron, the different ways or the different furnaces and how they changed throughout the years, how charcoal was eventually used. And one thing that I didn't realize was I thought that a lot of North America was deforested to make our structures and to heat the houses with fires, to cook our food. But in fact, most of the forests were cut down to feed those ever-hungry furnaces that produced iron. So as the book goes on and on, detailing this stuff, it gets into the shop itself. There's another passage I'm looking for that I would like to read because it's pretty entertaining. It's before the hand tools. Yes. Here we go. It's a different use of the anvil than what we generally think of. In the old days, the anvil was used on holidays such as the 4th of July, on Christmas Day in the South, for a purpose far removed from blacksmithing. Men still alive today can remember as boys the excitement of blowing the anvil in the street in front of the blacksmith's shop on a gala day. 2 anvils were needed for this operation. One was laid on the street face down, and the cavity in its base was filled with black powder. Another anvil was placed right side up on the base of the first, so that the cavities of the two coincided. A fuse was then placed between the two and was lit while the expectant boys and men, standing at a good distance, watched with eager anticipation as a small cloud of smoke indicated the progress of the fire through the fuse. Then suddenly there was a roar, a flash of orange flame, and a cloud of white, odoriferous smoke. Ringing merrily, the upper anvil was thrown several feet into the air before falling to the ground. The whole exciting business was then repeated as long as the supply of black powder lasted. Just little anecdotes like this that make this book special. It was written in the late 60s at a time when the author says there wasn't a whole lot of information about blacksmithing available to the public. Back then, as the blacksmith was becoming obsolete, people didn't think about it too much. So it goes on and on about the different forges, the different bellows that were created for each different forge, the types as they progressed through the centuries, from basically pits in the ground to what we have today. It's a fascinating book, one that I highly recommend for anybody interested in blacksmithing, iron, or even just thinking about where we are as a culture and a people and where it all came from. So I'll keep this video at this. Nothing too much more to say. If you're interested in history, I highly recommend The Art of Blacksmithing by Alex W. Beeler. Have a good day, y'all.